Hello, welcome to another Drive and Double Feature. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into anything, we've got a Patreon over at patreon.com/drive and double feature podcast at gmail.com. Just a couple of fun games, fun entries of Nathan and I just goofing around, having a fun time, talking more about movies, more of what you love. And you can see that over on Patreon. Don't worry, it does not affect any regular content. But it is part two of Bondzilla this week. And we're talking about the Zilla part. And we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about Godzilla versus Gigan from 1972, directed by Jun Fukuda, the original director of Godzilla versus Ebirah and Son
Ooh.
of Godzilla.
All right. Okay. Cool.
This one is coming off the heel of Godzilla versus Hedorah. And before I get into anything, my sources that I'm citing once again are Big Action Bill and David Callett's book. So, coming off the heels of Hedorah, the producer of Godzilla was not having that movie. It was way too out there.
hmm
And Godzilla was kind of seeing somewhat of a resurgence because I kind of talked about it for a little bit on King Kong versus Godzilla, where Honda had taken out like the best scenes from that
Oh yeah.
movie and destroyed like the original master copy of some of them, so they had to have a lesser quality. But basically, what it was is that they took the best scenes of Godzilla movies and they edited them on to like this big best of type of thing, and it did really well at the Champions Film Festival. And the impression that the producers got from it is that Godzilla is already at the point where audiences are like, I'm sick of this new Godzilla. Bring me the old Godzilla. Remember the good old days from Godzilla?
Oh yeah. The one from like 5 years ago.
Yeah. There was two main things they wanted to accomplish. Well, three things, I guess. One, even less of a budget from Hedorah,
hmm
and must include Ghidorah again because Ghidorah hasn't been seen since Destroy All Monsters, and that's one of the biggest things was that the positive reaction to Ghidorah. So they're like, Ghidorah has to be in this next movie,
Yeah.
and the other thing too was bring back the alien plot points.
Oh, really? That's what they wanted?
We want more alien plot points like we used to remember from a Invasion of the Astro Monster, which everyone loves so much.
Yes, yes. And wasn't there another one with aliens in it too? Um,
Uh,
I guess kind of, well, no, not Mothra.
no, not Mothra. God, here me.
Well,
Yeah, they've done more, but
yeah.
I
But
I'm drawing a blank. But Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, I think, right?
yeah, which makes sense. Yeah, that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is it. Yeah.
yeah. So they uh they kind of had this idea they wanted to do that, like they want to like go back to basics, like we want to see. And they even said like one of the other points was like producers would actually view the showings of Godzilla, and like kids were not paying attention like during the human plot points. And
They're
so
literally me.
yeah, that's me as a kid. And they wanted more monster scenes, and there's more monster scenes in this one than normal, asterisk, kind of. But
Kind of, yeah.
but we'll get into that point. But the main thing is like there's a new monster on the street. His name is Gigan, and he is made to be a big presence in here. But before we get into any of Gigan, we'll get into him later. What did you think of this movie, Nathan? What are your thoughts on Godzilla versus Gigan?
I thought it was a fun entry. I actually enjoyed this one. I don't like kind of like the Bond movie. I don't think it's the best entry by any means, but I still think it's a good time. I liked it. I actually liked the human plot point a little bit. I thought the monster stuff was fun. We'll get in the Gigan. Gigan's pretty cool. So yeah, I think overall this is a pretty solid one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
So this one for me, this I had this one on VHS,
Mm,
and this one was in the regular rotation.
gotcha.
And because it is human plot points not great when I was younger. Again, I wasn't care, but as I've gotten older, I can appreciate it a little better. But um, there's a ton of monster scenes, and we'll get into it later. But even like the reused stock footage as a kid, I didn't notice.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I realized something was up, but I didn't really notice it this time either. And we just watched all these movies. I think they do an all right job of integrating it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But the that was a cost cutting measure and everything. But I really did enjoy this one as a kid, and watching this one again, it's still upper tier for
Mm,
me. It's very much like this is what I came here for. I mean, it's very much like they put a lot of effort into these, like the monster scenes that they do film,
hmm
and it's the monster scenes is almost like half of the movie, kind
Yeah,
of.
which I can appreciate. I can appreciate a little bit more monster.
So it's very much it's a whole deal. But getting into the movie, it's about a kind of an aspiring or failed manga artist, and he has these really funny like monster designs. He's got
Yeah. The
a homework monster and a strict mom
yeah,
monster.
Mamagon, I think is how he
Yeah,
says it. Who ends up being like that's his boss, right? It's like the
no, that's his girlfriend.
that's his girlfriend. That's how he feels about his girlfriend.
Oh,
That's how he's like, yeah, a horrible mother. Like, how would you feel if like just like somebody with your like boyfriend was like, yeah, I made this monster that just nags all day and is my mom. Why would you want to compare your girlfriend
yeah,
to your mom?
yeah. That's I see how fast a woman will stay with you when you tell her that you remind her of your mom.
Yeah, that's not gonna go for very long.
um, the thing I wanted, so that scene in particular, because they're kind of discussing it, and she's wanting him to like, this manga thing ain't working out. Like you need to find a new job. But that scene in particular, because I sent this scene to you a while
Hmm
ago. I remember if you remember what they actually say in the
Oh
English
yes,
version.
yeah,
It's it's such a funny scene. Like just the fact that they say this, like in a movie that's meant for
yeah.
children, is like he's staring at her and he just says, "You're a hard bitch." Like,
That's like something you say in an R-rated movie. Like I don't know, like that's just so mean.
yeah, but it's just so alarming. Like, what? Like,
Hmm Oh,
but
you're a hard bitch. So,
but that's funny though. But
mhm.
he does get like a job at or he's trying to get a job at Children's Land. That's it. They call it in the Japanese version, but in the English version, it's called Monster Island. So it's a physical representation of what Ichiro was kind of manifesting.
Holy crap. Yeah, because the monsters like exist in this world because they have like the giant statue of Godzilla there, and everything. It's like a celebration of the monsters.
And that was kind of like the theme of this movie at the time, is that Godzilla was at a point in history where the movies were not nearly as profitable as the merchandise.
Yeah. And I can honestly probably say it still is that way to this day.
Probably so. I mean, so like that was kind of like a commentary on the whole timeline. Like they literally have a statue of Godzilla in this
Mm.
theme park that says, that they have like there's toys, Godzilla toys in this movie, and that's kind of like the whole deal, is like these movies now are made to sell toys, and that's the whole
Yeah.
reason why Gigan was created, because they wanted a new toy.
Gigan would make for a pretty sweet toy. I'm not gonna lie. Thinking about that from that point of view now, Gigan definitely looks like, oh yeah, like this kids are gonna love this one. They're gonna buy this off the shelves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And but anyway, they kind of get there, and these park owners are kind of talking about like we want to build a world of peace and everything, but it's very vaguely hinted that there's something more behind that,
Very ominous in a way.
and they the first half of this movie is very much like a mystery of just trying to
Mm,
figure out what is the deal with these people, who are they, and
yeah.
there's a whole plot line too where they find out that these people are really dead, like they died, like, oh, that person died a year
Yeah.
ago.
See, that's why I think this movie's elevated a little bit, because like human plot points like for the past few movies have just been like pretty dead, like pretty like just non-existent. This one, I feel like it has a fun mystery to it. I think that adds to it because yeah, I really like that scene where they try to find the guy that owns the park, and they're like they go to their hometown, and they're like, oh no, he's been dead for a long time, like or for a year, I think they said, him and his friend. And it acts like it's something a little fun to add to the movie.
I I'm very much in favor of it because it's other plot points have been so abysmal.
Really.
I
Mhm.
mean, just like destroy all monsters, just like like we're aliens and we're gonna kill we're gonna take over the
Mhm.
world, and that's it. And I do appreciate that. Like one thing I will say about Jun Fukuda is that he makes really interest. I really like his human plot lines. Like
Yeah.
I honestly, I mean, in terms of Godzilla versus Ebirah had my favorite human plot point.
Yeah, exactly. That one actually had interesting characters and interesting plot. Maybe he just does a really good of like introducing just interesting characters, because there's one thing I can pick out of Ebera is the burglar that they bring along on the boat. Here, I actually really they're not as fleshed out, I would say, but I do like the hippie character and his and the girl he hangs out with. They're just kind of silly but interesting characters. It adds a little flavor to the movie.
There's the scene where he's just eating a corn cob.
Yeah, and
And
points at the manga artist, the manga artist. Sorry, the manga
I
artist.
was about to have
Yeah,
a
my bad.
fit, Nathan.
The manga artist, and the manga artist passes out because he thinks it's a gun. It's silly.
Yeah, but they do eventually uncover the mystery. And one thing they do uncover uh, is that again, this is an alien race, but get this, it's an alien race of cockroaches.
What a reveal, where like it shows like the shadow of the person, and it's like a roach shadow. It took me a second to realize what was going on. I saw the shadow, I was like, what are they doing? What is this? I was like, oh, is that a cockroach? So yeah, they're like cockroaches from another planet looking for a new place to habit, because that planet destroyed itself, because the classic cockroaches are the only thing that'll survive a nuclear war. So now they're going to come here and take over this planet.
I know, and that jumping way later into the movie, when these aliens do die, their human form is stripped away, and they're just cockroaches on the ground.
Yeah.
That part was pretty neat. I like that.
I like that too. Like they had the roaches on the ground and they were like still talking. It still had like voice lines, like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you," like kind of
Yeah,
deal.
yeah, good stuff.
Uh-huh.
Um, one thing I do want to talk about. So we did talk. I did kind of alluded to it earlier about the cost cutting,
Yeah.
and that was one big thing they did to save a ton of money. Is they just reused a lot of stuff for this movie. And one of the things that I think is like awful that they did, but they reused old scores from the Ikafube's.
Hmm.
They just reused like his score, and they interviewed him about it, and he just like, I didn't think that score fit this movie at all, because he did it for like a completely different movie,
Yeah.
like a documentary, I think. And it was just, there's almost no original music. There's one original song at the very end of the movie,
Yeah.
but that's the only original piece in there. And then so many reused shots in this movie. And
Mhm.
when they're describing all the pollution that's taken place on this cockroach planet. It's just
Yeah.
reused scenes from Godzilla versus Hedorah.
That's the one that really stood out to me, like the gunk in the water floating. I was like, oh, yep, I've definitely seen this before. Ghidorah destroying a city, and that's reused. There's a few things that are reused, and I get it for cost cutting measures, but it's just so lazy. I mean, maybe in the day and age of no home video is maybe a little easier to get away with because it wasn't so visible in people's minds.
I guess, and I guess if you were a kid and you saw Destroy All Monsters when it originally came out, and then you're like, what, at this point it's probably 3 years later, you're like, you've probably forgotten what a lot of this stuff looks like, so you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe that's new, but it's not. There's a lot of destruction scenes, a lot of the fight scenes, pretty much anything in here involving Ghidorah is reused, so
Yeah.
which
Which
is which is for good reason, I suppose. But
it's sad though, because I mean, that's like one of the best monsters like out of all of these movies, and you want to see more of him.
well, Nathan, got some bad news for you. This is the last Ghidorah movie.
No way, for real?
Yeah.
That's I'm a little sad. Okay. Okay.
Saying goodbye to Ghidorah because he won't be back until the '90s, I'm afraid.
Wow, that's crazy. That's really sad. But we at least got a cool monster with it because we get, of course, Gigan with it. But actually, let's talk about Godzilla and who is the other little guy with
What?
him?
Well, yeah, I want to set that up. So
Uh-huh.
they do find, so the manga artist, while he's investigating, they find this cassette tape. And they're like, huh, what is this? And they play it, and it's like this really distorted type of music. And,
Mhm.
or well, it just sounds like garble, actually.
Yeah.
And then we cut to a faraway island, and Godzilla and Anguirus are having a conversation.
Yes, with speech bubbles, with animated speech bubbles. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't hate it. It kind of adds to this movie's style. This movie's got like a style to it. It's kind of stupid, but it's fun.
When Big Action Bill brought it up, because it didn't even cross my mind, but it's like, oh, it's supposed to be like a manga thing because they're doing
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, I
But
wish maybe it was like Hedora, where maybe they really focused a little more into that style, because that's like really the only thing that's stylized like that. Maybe like an animated section, bring that back or something. I don't know.
it just, I can't tell you how surreal it is to like actually seeing what Godzilla is actually talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because before in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the the peanuts, they were able to be
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, this is exactly what got, but it was coming out of their mouth, and this one, it's just like, this is what Godzilla is actually talking. Like, this is him talking.
We get to hear Anger say, "Okay."
Okay, like well, because in the Japanese version, it's speech bubbles, like you said, and
Uh-huh.
it's but it's written in Japanese, so you can't
Yeah.
read it. But then Angress is the only one that says okay.
I loved
It,
it.
um, Now in the English version, I think I showed you this, but I think you may have seen it on your own too. Is that in the English version they actually talk?
I did see a clip of this. Have you seen the? Well, I'm guessing as a kid you watched the English
Oh yeah,
version. Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah,
It's even then I'm like it was just like, huh, like, because in the English version, I don't know why they couldn't, because they were able to wipe out the speech bubbles, but
yeah,
I guess they didn't want to do that again. I don't know, but they just have horrific voices. I
yeah.
cannot. It's like, hey, girl, why you want? There's something funny going on. You better go check it out.
Why did they do that? Like,
That's not what I would picture his voice to sound like.
no, no.
I,
But it.
can we play a little clip of that?
funny going on. You better check. Oh, yeah.
There you go. There's a little preview of it. It reminds me a lot of Minya, where like it just somehow in America they were just like, give them a dumb voice, make them sound silly.
Yeah, like, and the Japanese version of that, I mean, Minya at least sounds like a little kid because he's supposed to be a little kid.
Yeah.
And that one's like, oh, Godzilla said, I learned to learn to fight my own battles. And so it just completely I gotta imagine it's just American producers just being like, oh, this is kids. They don't want to read.
Yeah. I guess so. I don't know. But then they put bitch in the movie, so who knows?
Yeah. Kids were saying that in the 70s, probably, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I wasn't around.
Anybody in the 70s, please let us know if you're saying bitch.
You're saying it just to your mom, your dad, to your priest, everybody.
Girlfriend, wife, who cares? Daughter. But the thing is, though, it's like, yeah, they make these really interesting choices, I guess. But moving on is that Godzilla and Anguirus are having this conversation, and then Anguirus has to go check it out.
I love it. Yeah,
Anguirus swims to Japan to find out what's going on, and the army just shoos him away with bullets and missiles. They didn't do anything.
Yeah, but they just shoot at this guy, and Anguirus just turns right around. I love that Godzilla is like sending him off like his little lackey, like, "Hey, go, you take care of this. I don't feel like it."
Which I am totally fine with. Anguirus has one of my favorite roars, and it's one of my favorites. Just it's the little sped up saxophone.
Playing it right here.
I think it's funny as a character. And this one, though, so okay, Ghidorah and Gigan show up. Before we get into that, Ghidorah and Gigan show up, and another big cost cutting measure, just the cheapest looking models that you will see.
Flying around the tower. Yeah.
So originally, like when Ghidorah was flying, he had his legs, he was kicking and flapping his wings and all that. But the whole problem is that in order to get Ghidorah to fly, it takes 22 people to operate Ghidorah.
Yeah, that wasn't happening.
And that is way too much time and money. So they're like, just make him a little action figure or whatever that can fly. And Gigan does the same thing. He does like this little action figure looking that's just floating in the air. And but we do see Gigan for the first time, and I want to hear how would you describe what Gigan looks like?
It sucks because I heard it was described as a cyborg, and that's how I felt. Except he has hooks for hands, which is so bizarre. And he's like kind of gray, kind of has like a laser eye. He looks like he could be a machine, but not like Mecha Godzilla machine, right? Kind of like half. I don't know.
When I was a kid, when I thought about him, I was in my head, I was thinking like robotic rooster.
I could see it. Yeah. That fits it perfectly.
Or a robot chicken, if you will.
Robot chicken. Oh my god, that sounds interesting. We should maybe do something with that name.
So he's got the hooks for hands, and he's got a buzz saw right in the middle of his chest.
That's right. I forgot about the buzz saw. That comes into play later.
Oh, does it? And they show up there, and they immediately start wreaking havoc. This is one of the longer scenes in the movie. It's just the two of them just destroying Japan. And this is a lot of reused stock footage where they have Ghidorah destroying the town, even though that we've already seen him do that. And after that, like Ghidorah pretty much is just like standing on the sidelines most of the time.
Yes, yeah. They basically take him out of the movie for a little bit.
But Godzilla shows up, and And the water, he
He
they said it in the Big Action Bill video, but when I was watching it, I'm just like, what is wrong with his
no.
face?
When I was watching it too, I was like, I was like, this is maybe the worst Godzilla suit I've seen. The one in the water, horrible looking. Like it looks so bad. The eyes on it are awful.
And that has a good reason too, because
Mhm.
it's the suit from Son of Godzilla, which we said was the worst looking suit in the entire series. So they reused that one for the water scene. So that's
God,
why. So it's
and-
like the worst looking suit that's waterlogged, because that's why his whole face looks like it's
yeah.
drooping.
And that one was from what, years ago at this point?
67, I want to say.
I'm looking it up real fast. Yeah, 67. So what has it been, 5 years since it? And and Godzilla time is a long time for a suit.
And that's just the one thing they did. Like, they never really took care of any of these costumes either. It's like they were, they didn't think that, preserving any of these. So it's probably just sitting like in a shack somewhere
Yeah.
outside on like a Toho soundstage or something. Like, so it's probably got weather damage and everything like that. But they do replace the head, and his head does look better once he actually gets onto land.
Yes, yeah, he looks a lot better. Yeah, and then we get a nice long action sequence, and it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, it's Gigan. It's the first kind of tag team type of action we've seen in a
Yeah.
movie. Like, we've seen Godzilla and like 9 other monsters or whatever at one time
Mhm.
going at it against Ghidorah, but this one, it's very much like 2-on-2 action, but
Yeah.
kind of sort of not really, because like I said, Ghidorah, it takes so much effort to operate him that there's a lot of scenes where he's just standing on the sidelines. And
Yeah.
the scenes they do reuse, I did notice it just because I could tell the difference, because like the scene where Godzilla's getting shot by Ghidorah's lightning, and
Yeah.
like when him and Ghidorah are fighting, that I could tell like that was reused. But I will say this: Godzilla and Anguirus like get the crap beaten out of them. Like,
Yeah.
it is one of like, it's like almost like a murder happening.
It's surprisingly like ultra violent. Like for a Godzilla movie, there's like an insane scene where Anguirus like charges at Gigan and runs right into Gigan's buzzsaw, and there's blood. Blood gets on the camera like it's like a dang like gore film.
Nathan, if somebody has a buzzsaw pointed at you, is your strategy to run face first into the chest?
I don't know. Anguirus, he wasn't thinking that day. He was in the heat of the battle. He was angry, okay?
He was very angrious, and
Yes, it's in the name.
I mean, as a kid, it's shocking. Even now, it's still pretty shocking to
It
see,
really
like,
is.
for that, seeing that type of effect in there. And
Mhm.
but still, I'm like, well, what was he thinking? Like, what was the point there? But there's other really shocking scenes. Like, there's a scene where Godzilla gets hit, and it just like squirts like a fountain of blood out of his arm.
Yes, yeah. Well, not only that, but the one that really got me was Gigan hitting Godzilla over the head with the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Godzilla gets knocked unconscious.
Mhm.
Gigan just stands Godzilla up and just like uses him as a punching bag. And
Yeah. And
but
like,
except he has claws, like giant hooks. And
yeah.
there's one where he does like an overhand like shot, like right to the middle, like right to the center of Godzilla's scalp,
Mhm.
and just blood is pouring out of Godzilla's
Yeah.
head.
This is Godzilla at his. I mean, I've seen Godzilla lose before, but this is Godzilla feeling like a loser. Like his head is cracked open. There's like a scene where he's like getting kicked on the ground almost. He's like, he looks dead. Godzilla looks
They
defeated.
they drop him on the floor on the
Yeah.
ground. He looks dead. He honestly looks like he was just murdered.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sight to behold.
Yeah. And Anguirus, well, like while Godzilla's getting beaten up by Gigan, Anguirus thinks like, now's my chance. He's going to go after Ghidorah, and they reuse the scene from Destroy All Monsters where Anguirus bites onto Ghidorah's neck and gets flown into the air and gets dropped from the sky to the ground.
I mean, it's a great scene. It's okay. I'll watch it again.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say. So of the reused stock footage, like, so in All Monsters Attack, Godzilla's Revenge, it's very, very noticeable reason that it's just like we're gonna replay whole unedited sequences of Godzilla fighting Kumanga and Ebirah and all that, but this one it kind of works. It kind of works.
I don't hate it. Maybe it is just because God, All Monsters Attack was so bad with its stock footage that seeing just a little bit of it, and I mean they use more than just a little bit in this one, it's just like, okay, maybe it's not as bad, but they at least use better scenes, because I feel like All Monsters Attack didn't even use like the best scenes, honestly, or the Ebirah fight, they cut out some of the best parts of that fight too. So
yeah, it's different, like, you know, it's different for me. It's not overused, and it is blended well-ish enough. I mean, there is a couple of ones where it's very clear like they were filmed during the daytime, and they're like, oh, we got to make them look like it's nighttime now, type of thing. So they do that a lot, but it's more forgivable. And eventually, though, Godzilla does regain himself, and he he wraps his arms around Ghidorah's neck, and him and Anguirus do like this tag team maneuver where Godzilla's holding him, and then Anguirus just throws his whole spiked shell at. It's definitely Anguirus's like biggest moment up to this point.
Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, where he goes at him back flying and hits him right with the spiky shell. It's a good one.
I like it because after he does it, Godzilla's just waving. I'm like, do it again. Come on. and he does it. They reuse that shot 3 times.
Yep. Yeah.
And then immediately afterwards, Godzilla does like a judo throw to Ghidorah. And again, they play it 3 times in a row.
Yeah. They really were like, we're stretching it. I mean, would anyone really complain if this movie was like an hour, 10 minutes? It feels like maybe they stretched it out a little too far to get an hour 29.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I won't. But it's all in good fun.
It is.
But I can't tell you though, the part that probably had me laughing the hardest for this movie was Gigan trying to fly away, and then Godzilla shooting him down with his atomic breath, and then Gigan just like crashing into all these different. He did it twice, like into different monuments. This Gigan just coming down, just crashing into the ground.
But the thing is like, I mean, obviously they're the losers, but nobody dies. I know Gigan comes back. He makes it out of here.
Yeah, they do. And they do beat up the monsters enough for them to fly away. But I mean, I'm like, they got, I mean, I don't know. Like Gigan and Ghidorah definitely got the better. Well, I was going to say they got the better of that fight.
You think so? You think, I think of it like an underdog thing. You know, they got their butts whooped, but they came back and got them to go away.
That's true. But I was just going to say, it's like, it definitely was not an easy battle for them.
God, no. It was probably the hardest battle they've had yet. Yeah.
And they swim away and go back. They go back home, and they swim away together, Anguirus and Godzilla, just like two buds.
They get a cute song at the end together.
They do.
And the people live too. They did their thing.
Yeah, they did their thing. They killed the aliens. They got what they wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what if I were to tell you this is not how this movie was originally supposed to go?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Now, what if I told you originally this was going to be Godzilla teaming up with Rodan and Varan, of all people?
I did not know this.
Against Gigan, Ghidorah, this other monster named Megalon, which we'll talk about another time,
Okay.
and a brain monster.
Ooh, that sounds awesome. Like the brain.
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But it, and then eventually they got rid of Rodan, they got rid of Varan, they got rid of Megalon, and then but then there was this giant stone monster that they were going to have at one point,
What?
because there was a we're going to talk about it eventually. I can tell you this: it's a giant stone monster that was like Daimonjin. That's
Okay.
that is a thing in other kaiju movies. So I guess that was like their version of that. So it was going to be like a giant stone monster that the brain character was going to try to infuse with, but the brain monster wouldn't be having it. So the stone monster would be teaming up with Godzilla and Anguirus.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but that all fell through because, and then Mothra at one point was going to be in the movie, but again,
I
they're like,
wish.
I know, I'm so sorry, and that would have been a lot more flying monsters. Are like, no way, not like one flying monster is enough. That's
Hmm.
already too many. So
Yeah.
that's why Varan and Rodan all lost their point. Which there's so many moments where Varan was almost in these
I
movies.
know. I was actually going to say Varen never gets his time to shine, like ever. Like he gets like either a small second or nothing. He's just a part of the plans, and they're like, we don't want to do Varen.
I know, and he's not in any more movies like for the rest of the entire franchise.
He doesn't even make like a cameo. It seems like I don't know, the later ones they like to just be like, yeah, this monster's in this from forever ago.
I don't believe so. I have to check again to be 100%, but I'm pretty sure like Baron, this is it for Baron.
No one cares about Varen.
Yeah. Now, one thing we definitely have to dedicate a section to in this episode is the biggest running theme throughout the series that you and I have done, Nathan, has always been what an awesome, like what a testament to Nakajima, the suit actors,
Hmm.
talent.
How hard of work that is.
He's the hardest working man, is probably the most consistent performer,
Hmm.
always ready for it to be Godzilla. And at that point, he was definitely the glue that held this whole thing together. And just no matter what changes they told him to do, he did it, knocked it out of the park each time, in my opinion. But
Mm.
I did mention in the last movie, he was kind of like, what am I doing with my life type of thing. And just not really that extreme, but he was just very much just like, I didn't have a passion for the character anymore.
Yeah.
And because Subaraya had died and all these original collaborators of
Mm.
the movie were just kind of like bowing out, like didn't want to move on with it. So this is Nakajima's last Godzilla movie. And it's honestly very sad in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until maybe a little bit before recording. I was really surprised because I thought he was like one of the ones that stuck around for a long time. And he did, trust me, he stuck around for a long time, but it's sad that he's gone, of course.
Yeah, he's definitely a huge legend, and I don't think his performance will ever get enough praise in modern
Mm.
media. I mean, just like the same people that praise like Andy Serkis for doing motion capture work and
Hmm.
Gollum, which not he does deserve it, but it's like somebody like this should honestly be in the same breath or like in that same category of like unsung heroes that make these movies.
Yeah, the almost faceless in a way, like they're hidden behind something. Nope.
But Nakajima was still very much a huge fan. He did adore his time in Godzilla. Went to conventions all the time. Spoke very
Nice.
fondly of being Godzilla. Wrote a book about being Godzilla. Lived a full happy life until 2017.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like he lived a long life, so that's awesome.
So very much a legend in my book, and we salute you over here.
Of course, Drive and Double Feature loves you.
Yeah. And after that, so like going back to the performance of this movie, it grossed slightly higher than Hedorah,
Okay.
and considering the budget was even less than Hedorah, it was considered a modest enough hit.
Yeah, that's a success.
It's like, I mean, the all those cost cutting measures really paid off, apparently. So,
Yeah.
and that's this one. I think this one is pretty fondly remembered by most fans. I mean, this one, like Gigan is one of the more popular like kaijus to be in a movie, and considering that he does come back multiple times, and they have remade, they just made like a little short film with Gigan 2 versus Godzilla not that long ago, celebrating the 50th anniversary of this movie.
Oh, nice.
So Gigan is definitely remembered as one of the more popular ones, and I could say, this one's definitely one of the more enjoyable ones in the series.
No, I totally agree. I think this one's a lot of fun. Yeah, just all around a really solid Godzilla movie. Gives you exactly what you want. Good monster fights, and as the added bonus of a pretty decent human story. So, I mean, just out of all the ones I watch, it seems like Jun Fukuda is one of the better directors of the bunch.
Yeah, I mean,
other than Ishiro Honda, of course. In Chirio Honda.
Yeah, of course. That's what his name is. Yeah, I mean, definitely like Jun Fukuda is definitely probably like my favorite human version, like director. But I would have loved to have seen Bono come back and do another one, because this one is more of like a return to form. It's very much repeating a lot of the same tropes from other Godzilla movies, but and it's not necessarily a bad thing. They're able to work it in a certain way, but I really would have liked to, maybe not even Bono, just like somebody start pushing the boundaries of these Godzilla movies, because the other one, like I said, had such interesting ideas. Like I wanted more of that. Like just like we've seen the same stuff. Like give me some stuff that I've never seen before, type of thing. But apparently that's not what they wanted. Audience want more of the same, like they do now. So just like give me my fast food and shut up. So
yep. Well, all right. It makes us money.
Yeah, that's right. So who am I to say by any means? But I give this movie, I recommend. I mean, if you, again, pretty easy watch, short movie, and it's a nice movie viewing experience, I'd say.
Yeah, I totally agree. I recommend it.
But we're gonna shut the book on Toho for now. Godzilla will be back, and that will be it for this week. So Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
All right. So next time we are going to be talking about Miami Blues from 1990, and that is streaming currently on Criterion Channel and Tubi for free. So be sure to check that one out.
Terrific. Cannot wait for that one. But if you'd love to continue the discussion with us, send us your thoughts and opinions. You can email us over at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DIDFpod. And again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/driveindoublefeaturepodcast. But until next time.
Until next time.